and a therapist, which is also great because there were times where he was really
helpful.
Where I was like, first off, sir, are you a nosy Nelly or what is going on here? And then I realized he's a therapist, and I was like, he is trying to therapist me, and I am okay with it because I need all the therapisting I can get. Okay.
I don't know if therapisting is an actual verb, but you know.
Well, you know, I need therapy.
Yeah, everybody needs therapy. I need therapy. I got that anxiety workbook. You know I did.
Yeah.
Really excited about it. Hopefully my anxiety will be cured.
The dialectical anxiety workbook. They also have the dialectical therapy anger management, and they also have one about relationships that are kind of volatile. They have just so many different ones.
So you're saying if I do this workbook, my anxiety will be gone?
Not gone, but you are learning how to manage your anxiety, and I do know that this has helped with other people as well, me too, but that the dialectical therapy stuff does really take a different approach that I believe this is what everybody should be doing. This kind of stuff is regardless of if you are going to therapy, and also if you are on medication, you also have to take another approach in this other direction of learning how to identify when things are happening that you're responding to in the way that makes you have this anxiety or your depression or whatever, anger issues, and learn how to manage them so that you can function in society and not be a hindrance to a society. I think it's everybody's responsibility.
Or yourself, yeah. Well, because, I mean, last podcast always says that your mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I love that.
You do have to take responsibility for making sure that you're not just becoming the victim to your diagnosis.
Absolutely.
So,
100%.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Creep It Real. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Bianca.
And thank you for joining us. This is, again, Creep It Real.
Welcome back.
You needed to know.
Welcome back, everyone. And welcome to the family. Brian from Florida, Ryan from California, Cody from Minnesota, Annette from Massachusetts. Girl, you are going to love this episode if you didn't love Bridgewater enough.
You loved all of them.
Adriana from California, Sarah from New York, and welcome back, Anna from Maryland.
And I just realized that I'm never going to say your mom's name with confidence ever in my life.
You can call her Adriana.
Or Mommy.
No, please don't.
Go ahead.
please no.
Okay, I'll try not to.
We are super grateful and truly humbled by the amount of support we've received from you guys. Holy shit, dude. We have snowballed so much with our family here. It's so nice.
Very exciting. You could call me Mommy.
Please
actually.
don't. No, no.
I feel like that's where we're headed. So,
since we last recorded, everyone should have gotten their pin. Well, if you're a part of our Patreon, y'all should have gotten your pins. And if you haven't, please reach out to us and let us know. And if you want to order a sweet, sweet pin, they are on our website. We put them up today.
Somebody already ordered one.
They did. I didn't even see that.
Yep.
Well, thank you for your order.
Yes.
But if you haven't ordered one, head over to creepitrrealpod.com to snag one on up. They're super cool. We hinted pretty heavily about what today's episode is going to be about during our Bridgewater Triangle episode. And in keeping up with the theme of axe-wielding murderesses and the town of Fall River, Massachusetts, we are doing an episode on the infamous Lizzie Borden.
Let me just say that this was a complete synchronicity altogether.
Yeah, honestly, Bridgewater wasn't even something we were planning. We plan out all of our episodes kind of in advance, but we didn't plan Bridgewater to be a thing. We planned something else, and there just wasn't enough information on it, so we're like, let's just do Bridgewater. We want to do that anyways. But yeah, and then all of a sudden we were doing Bridgewater, and we're like, oh, look!
Lizzie Borden!
Lizzie Borden is on this one, too!
So it was a huge aspect of the Bridgewater Triangle that we left out because we already had planned to do it here. So, and then we didn't I didn't realize that Leonarda, I forget her last name now, the axe
Chinchula? Whatever.
Chinchuli?
I don't remember either.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's okay. That she was a kind of an axe murderer herself. And so that was like 2 axe murders. We didn't really realize that. And then the Lizzie Borden being tied to the Bridgewater Triangle, it was just, this happens, I've noticed so many times, is just these synchronicities. Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, we did the Black Eyed Kids last year, and then like something else, and then something else. But then
Men in Black.
No.
Oh.
Shadow people.
Oh, yeah.
It was like one and then another, and then we were like, oh, they're tied together, and then so was the Hat Man, and that was tied. Yeah,
well,
this happens.
It does, and I think that some people believe that synchronicities are the universe kind of telling us we're on the right path, and if you're actually listening to them and you continue to follow them and not fight them, then we're just kind of following the path that we're supposed to be on. Also,
numbers. I've gotten repeating numbers for the past month or week actually. It's been a week. Mm-hmm. I've gotten like 1111 or 111 or 1234, and that's supposed to be a synchronicity from the universe saying you're on the right path.
Okay.
Anyways, whatever.
All right, spirit guides, take me away.
Our sources for this episode are from me, The Life and Trial of Lizzie Borden.
And I read The Borden Murders, Lizzie Borden and the Trial of the Century by Sarah Miller.
If you did listen to the last episode, we talked about the mysterious goings-on in the Bridgewater Triangle and how the land in the area might contribute to it. But for a quick, very, very quick refresher, Fall River, Massachusetts was a sprawling industrial town only 49 miles south of Boston.
It has a rich history of Native American culture going back centuries, and also paranormal sightings throughout the whole area.
And really, for more information on it, just go back and listen to our Bridgewater episode. It was an episode again.
Literally last episode. Yeah. Go on back and take a visit there.
So for the beginning of the episode, I kind of wanted to focus on Lizzie's family and a little bit of her childhood and kind of the cast of characters. Mm-hmm. Her father, Andrew Jackson Borden, was of English and Welsh descent. He grew up, although the descendant of a very wealthy and influential family, in Fall River in very modest surroundings. He struggled financially as a young man, but eventually prospered in the manufacturing and selling of furniture and caskets.
Ooh.
He went on to become a successful property developer and directed several textile mills, including Globe Yarn Mill Company, Troy Cotton, and Woolen Manufacturing Company.
I love the way that you say cotton. Cotton.
I say grocery shopping too.
I just call it I go to the grocery, and people think that's weird.
I don't because it's you, because I've heard you say it so many times.
Okay.
But people don't like it when I say grocery shopping.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you. Andrew was also both the president of the Union Savings Bank and a director of the Durfee Safe Deposit and Trust Company.
That's not a name that you should name your company. That even if it's your last name, change it up. Durfee.
At the time of his death, his estate was valued at $300,000, which at the time was $8,540,000 for today's cash.
Whoa. I had no idea that we were dealing with Mr. Moneybags over here.
I didn't either. And actually, that's why the case was so dramatic and it was so compelling, because it was a wealthy family.
Yeah, that makes sense now. The only important people around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Despite his wealth, however, Andrew was very frugal, and the Borden home lacked indoor plumbing, although it was common for wealthy people at the time to have.
Get a toilet, everyone. God damn it. What are y'all doing? Sarah... What is going on here? Even the Greeks had toilets, did they not? Come on. Indoor plumbing. Get it together. That is frugal beyond necessary.
Measure.
That's the kind of frugal where you end up just dying and all your money is just sitting there for nothing.
Right.
Way to go.
Right. You can't take it with you.
Oh, Jesus.
Lizzie's mother, Sarah Borden, and her father, Andrew, were married on Christmas Day of 1845 when Andrew was 23, and they had their first daughter, Emma, 6 years after their marriage in 1851.
Damn. They really waited.
Yeah, it was a long time. And we'll talk about that in a second, but there's like speculation as to why that might be the case.
I love it. Let me just say, I love it.
That there was a time period that they got to be free?
Yeah, yes. They were. I mean, now I want to say that as well. I love it if you also decided to have a baby before you ever lived together. Do your thing.
Sure, yeah.
But for me, I just been thinking about myself and how everyone was like,
same.
Oh, you're in a relationship for a week? Where the fuck are the kids already? It's like, wait a second. I'll never have them.
Yeah.
You just wait till you change your mind.
Oh my God.
You just wait.
Also, side note, I've heard the advice from people to just, if you do decide to be child free, just to say, oh, we've been trying.
Oh, so everyone feels
so
like...
people feel awkward.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Because
they
should feel awkward for asking you when you're
Fuck
fucking.
you. Yeah, because also, what if I did want a kid really badly and I was
Exactly.
having a terrible time having a child?
Exactly.
You're an asshole.
Exactly.
Because of social conventions. And yeah, okay. Get it together.
So Emma was relatively religious, and she was very involved in church activities. She taught Sunday school to immigrant children to the United States. She was involved in organizations like the Christian Endeavor Society, and she was also a member of the Ladies' Fruit and Flower Mission.
Oh my! Is that a sexual escapade?
That was what I thought too at first, but no. The Ladies' Fruit and Flower Mission was a group that would sew blankets and caps and take jams and such to hospitals for women.
That's almost equally as great, to be honest. I mean, it's a little bit less great, but mostly great. Because, I mean, I love a blanket, and if you could sew me one, that would be even more amazing. And I'll also take jams because I love to make biscuits. So, Here we are.
Lizzie was born on July 19th, 1860, 9 years after Emma.
What?
I know, it was a long... We're going to talk about it in just like a second. Like, give me a second here.
Okay. I'm just aghast at this time period. It's very strange.
I know. It's very strange for the time.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew and Sarah had a second child between Emma and Lizzie, but the child did die very young. Oh. Very common for the time. Mm-hmm. The 9-year gap between the two girls, along with the 6 years before having their first daughter, might mean that they had quite a few miscarriages before Emma and between her and Lizzie, which would, for the time, like I just said, be unsurprising. And there's a little bit of speculation regarding a marital estrangement, but there's not very much to go on for that. There's not a lot of evidence for that.
I also might say that for the miscarriages aspect of it, that is not uncommon now either. I can't tell you how many friends that I've had that have told me that they had a miscarriage, and I'm like, I guess it's just extremely common whenever you haven't had a pregnancy before.
Yeah.
Anyway.
As a child, Lizzie was described as very sensitive and inclined to be non-communicative with those she didn't quite know, which is the case for, I think, a lot of kids and most people. I'm not very communicative with people I don't know until I know them, and then I'm like, Chatty Cathy.
Right.
But being older, and her sister being older than Lizzie was her constant guide and was somewhat of Lizzie's idol. I wouldn't know because I'm an only child. I don't know how that works.
And I wouldn't know either because I'm the oldest, so I was just like...
So you are the idol.
Yeah. Which makes sense because I am a Capricorn, so I'm the queen of the astrological signs.
Yes.
That's me. I saw that the other day and I was like, yes, I am. Well, I might as well just own up. You know how we want to identify with every single thing that was good, and then the ones that are bad, I'm like, well, I don't know about that. And then I do see other ones though from other signs that I'm like, oh, that's me too.
Yeah, of course,
obviously.
Of course. You know, it's funny. The Cancer and the Capricorn are the mother and father of the zodiac.
Am I the father?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Weird, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We can call you Daddy, not Mommy now.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't even know. Well, we know my feelings about the daddy thing.
This is a tangent episode.
Have you ever been with someone where you're like, I could, you almost want to?
No,
is that because you call your dad daddy? Yeah. Because I've never, I wouldn't dream. See, because that's so funny that your brain is already set to daddy is my actual dad. Yes. My brain is like, ew, my actual dad would never be called daddy. And then I'm like, but I have been in situations where I was like, I might say it in a second if I pushed one more little step further. I'm about to say this word. I know it's like a sacred word.
I'm hot right now. No, I'm so embarrassed. I can't.
Are you? Because I was embarrassed when I heard that you called your dad daddy at first, and now I accept it because I'm like, guess what? Your relationship with your stepdad, who is your dad,
my dad,
is the most beautiful fucking relationship. It's the kind of relationship I always wished that I had with my real dad, but it just it wasn't meant to be, and that's fine. I've accepted it by now.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And I love it. I really do. Because I think that really it helped you thrive in life.
Sure, yeah.
But I do also think that I have, I want to call somebody daddy sometimes. I might, and it just really mucks it up. The daddy thing is a hard hard line. It's a hard one. So anyway, okay.
So Lizzie's mom, Sarah, died.
Oh, happy Halloween, everyone.
Lizzie's mom, Sarah, died at only 39 years old. Yeah, this was in 1863 when Lizzie was only 2 years old of uterine congestion and spinal disease.
What in the fuck is uterine congestion?
I want to say it was probably a really bad UTI.
Ooh, that is terrible.
But I don't know because I didn't look that up.
Okay.
Although I should have.
Well, we can't look up everything, and I appreciate it when people come and say, hey, this is what this means. And it's like, thank you so much.
There's speculation that there was likely some form of cancer that she had that could have possibly been exacerbated by another miscarriage that they had, probably trying to have another just-in-case baby.
Well, that's a good way to put it. That's a very kind...
Well, it happened all the time.
Okay, I'm sure. I know.
Lizzie's uncle, John Morse, was Sarah's brother, and he remained close to Andrew after his sister's death and was probably Andrew's only real friend, even going into business with one another. He lived with the family for most of 1875. Andrew's business was making a ton of profits off of the Civil War, because, war and caskets. And
That's
often,
sad.
Yeah, I know. And often left Lizzie in the care of Emma, or a hired woman, and after the war in 1865, he decided to get remarried. He got married to Abby Durfee Gray.
Oh, marrying inside the business over here. Okay.
Who was 37 years at the time of their marriage. He probably wanted to marry her because he needed a wife to run the home and be a mother, and she probably wanted to marry him for a higher social status.
I mean, I guess that's just how it worked.
I suppose.
It still kind of does, I guess, in some cases.
Lizzie soon began calling Abby mother because she had very little memory of Sarah, her biological mother. But Emma was 14 at the time and did not feel the same way and went to boarding school. Lizzie was shy and a bit of a loner, so this did hit her pretty hard. Emma's going off.
Yeah. Lizzie's school principal told a reporter, as a pupil, she was an average scholar, neither being exceptionally smart nor noticeably dull. She was subject to varying moods and was never fond of her stepmother. She had no hesitation in talking about her and in many ways showed her dislike of her father's second wife. He described Abby, however, as a kindly, lovable woman who tried, albeit to no avail, to win the love of her stepdaughters. I don't know. I think that this is a time period where if you don't toe the line, you're thought to be a troublemaker, and especially if you're a woman. So
Sure.
Lizzie was a little girl, probably... Listen, most step-parents probably suck.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
I mean, we just talked about my dad, but I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
I do know, however, somebody whose stepmother is just like a few years older than she is.
Yeah.
And she fucking can't stand her.
Well, and okay, I shouldn't say most. I should say that there's probably a lot that do suck because it's a very difficult task to take on someone else's child and love them as your own and then have all the other baggage. And not to say that that sounds kind of bad, but
no, it is
the baggage that comes with them, and it's a very complicated situation. So it's also possible, I love whenever you take one side, you're like, well, she's the adult, so we're going to take her side, but it's like, maybe she was kind of mean. It's definitely possible that she didn't really love the fact that she had suddenly had two daughters that were probably not that much different in age than her. I think they weren't.
They weren't. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the fact is it's probable. A lot of people, or a lot of like step parents, I give them fucking super high. A lot of step parents call their adoptive or their kids my stepdaughter or my stepson, which is I think that's even another barrier between that kind of relationship that can form.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think it's kind of important. But again, I don't know the relationship. My dad just always called me my daughter.
Yeah, which I mean,
This
obviously
is my daughter.
yours is like the ideal situation.
Seriously. Anyways.
Okay, so during her teenage years, Lizzie gravitated toward her father, shutting out her stepmother, and of course, clinging to Emma, her older sister, who was a spinster, as we have said to us many times in the story, which I'm not thrilled by, to be honest, who stayed at home and never married because maybe she didn't want to be tied down to some fucking guy who was dragging her all over the place all the time. Maybe that was why. Maybe she should have been called. Maybe she was lesbian. Maybe she should have been called a glorious, I figure out my own future and don't have anyone else dictate my future to me, lady. You know, come on.
That seems like a long title.
Well, spinster just sounds like shit. So because of the money that Andrew made during the war with all those casket sales and all, the Borden family was considered in quite high standing, and Liddy and Lizzie had an active social life, going to parties and, like her sister, serving as the secretary of the Fruit and Flower Mission, in which she handed out pretty little vaginas to all who wanted them.
Everybody.
Everyone.
You get one and you get one.
You get a vagina and you get a vagina. The fruit and flower of my mission.
Shut the fuck up. Lizzie was also destined to be a spinster. And with 3 women residing in one home, there were bound to be some struggles.
I'm gonna loud sigh every time we have to say spinster in this story.
At 27, the ripe old age of 27,
that old lady,
Lizzie and Abby had a falling out, and Lizzie stopped referring to Abby as mother. I don't know what they had a falling out about, but, you know.
It could have been various things. Don't go out. Stop sleeping with John.
Don't do your eyeliner like that.
Don't do your eyeliner like that. Like someone I know in this room had that very fight with their mother like yesterday.
Like a year ago.
What was it, by the way?
I was doing man, this really is going to be a tangent again.
It's okay, everybody. It's Halloween.
It's okay, everybody.
This is Halloween, or whatever.
That's not the right beat, but
I know.
You're on the right track.
I was changing it so we didn't get sued.
Good job. For trademark infringement. So, I was doing a video of myself when I was moving to Minnesota. Yeah. And I was like dressed professionally and did my makeup for it. And I was like, and my mom's like, "You didn't do your makeup like that, did you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And then it became a whole thing because my eyeliner is always too much.
What was wrong with? Oh,
it was just too much of a wing. Yeah.
Oh my god, Mom.
I do my makeup the same, Mom.
Luckily for you now, I don't wear eyeliner anymore, really, but you would have hated my eyeliner, I know, because I remember thinking that Bianca applied it with such delicate precision, and I was unable to do so. So I can only imagine the critique that you would have given me for mine.
I think, it's fine.
It's okay. It's fine. Okay, let's get back to this. Let's get back to Lizzie Borden, for fuck's sake.
On June 21st of 1890, Lizzie and Emma left Boston on a 19-week European vacation.
Whoa, we got a traveling pants of the fancies.
Yes. While this wasn't surprising because of their status and income, scholars do believe that it probably is indicative of their unhappiness at home.
True.
I mean,
I think it's a little much to say, like, I need to spend a week at each location.
I mean, that's 4.5, almost 5 months. It's a long time.
I would love it. I think I would love it. I went on a long vacation once and it was one spot. That's it. So I think that would obviously be different. You just travel around to a different spot for a week at a time. One day, Bianca, one day we're going to do it. We are. I know we are. We're going to be traveling around like going, God damn it, we're here for 19 weeks. Where's the hamburger? What is this bangers and mash that I'm being served?
Bangers and mash, though, are fucking...
I feel
Chef's kiss. I love bangers and mash.
I'm sure that's great and everything, but I heard stories that made me think I'm gonna have a stomachache.
No, you won't.
Weeks.
It's delicious. In 1889, the Borden family employed a young Irish immigrant named Bridget Sullivan to help handle some of the more grueling housekeeping tasks.
No, let's all take note that the family didn't call this woman Bridget as her name was. They called her Maggie because that's the name of their former housekeeper.
Yes.
As though she were a Roomba traveling around this home. She's not a person. She is simply the Roomba of your home.
Oh my God, Ashley.
It's awful. I honestly have started to have a form an opinion just based off of little tidbits such as that. Treating your housemaid.
You almost said servant.
I did. Treating your housemaid. Well, because it's so weird to me that you have this person that's serving your every whim.
Yeah, true.
But anyway, treating them like, you're not you. You're just in our house serving as Maggie.
You are maid number 2. Like, they should have just called her number 2.
Oh, terrible. So, yeah. I'll elaborate more on those thoughts later.
On June 24th of 1891, Andrew and Abby traveled to their farm in Swansea, Massachusetts, while Lizzie and Emma remained home with Bridget. It was supposed to be a big day for Lizzie, who was being named to the board of the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Yeah, great if you really don't have much to do. Listen, I take a little umbrage about this. I'm like, can we also take note that a lot of people would be nominated as the board of the Good Samaritan Hospital or to the board of the Good Samaritan Hospital if they had the time to be able to spend doing this stuff. It's fine. I feel like I'm very defensive today about just about everything, not being about being a poor person. Okay, let's just keep on going.
Well, this day, their house was robbed while the three women were at home. Their next door neighbor,
Alice Russell, said that Lizzie had told her about the barn being broken into twice, and about the event in question, the house being broken into. Alice said that she had never heard that at all, to which Lizzie told her that Andrew had forbidden them from mentioning it to anyone, which I find to be really strange.
I think it's one of those keeping appearances types of situations.
Why is it okay? I guess it's okay for your barn to be broken into, but not your home, I guess. I mean, obviously it's better because you're not living in your barn.
Right.
But, I mean, listen, Hinterkaifeck had a barn broken into, and they all got massacred.
True.
With a hatchet.
True.
So, and they got massacred with a hatchet!
What is it with hatchets? You only like murders with hatchets.
Oh my gosh.
Ashley.
I cannot get over this. I didn't even realize this yesterday, but yeah. Sometimes I know it's annoying to hear that word all the time, but it's
synchronicity.
Like, you have to acknowledge it.
Like, acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it and thank it. Okay.
Lizzie's room had been ransacked. Robbers had taken a watch and chain, money, and car tickets, which I'm assuming it's a train ticket. And
probably like a train car.
Maybe. And a few other items. Lizzie was considered a troubled soul by her family because she had previously been accused of shoplifting, so they suspected her of being the thief, which does not make...
Why would she steal her own things?
A lot of sense.
I mean, you can't steal your own things.
They didn't accuse anyone, though, and Andrew had locks installed all over the house, allowing their maid, Bridget, a key to the side door. Relations within the family remained tense privately, but they kept up appearances in public, just like every other wealthy family does. Mm-hmm. Harkening back to JonBenet Ramsey, episode 1. Mm-hmm. Lizzie only faltering for a brief moment when she confided in her friend that Abby, her stepmother, was a, quote, mean old thing.
Maybe she really was a mean old thing. Maybe she was just mean.
Maybe. And we'll get into some reasons why I think that might be the case too in a little while.
A few months after the initial break-in, in April of 1892, the barn was broken into again.
Huh.
They kept pigeons in the barn, and Lizzie actually considered them to be as close to her as pets. Okay. Andrew claimed that it was the pigeons who attracted the intruders, and he used a hatchet to kill most of them, intensifying the resentment between himself and Lizzie.
Those are the makings of serial killer soup right there.
You know what? I don't understand what would be attractive about pigeons.
I'm breaking into that. Okay, so first of all, I do think that they're smarter than we give them credit for.
Sure, yes.
Secondly, I never knew anything about pigeons other than just seeing them around, until listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Spooked, by the people that make Snap Judgment, if you ever listen to NPR.
Oh, my mom loves Snap Judgment.
Every episode is one person's story that they tell.
Sure, yeah.
And so, anyway, it's my inspiration for a Halloween episode. But anyway, he had a story from this man from, I don't know, Mississippi or something, and he said that, like, he and his friends, they lived in a pretty poverty-stricken neighborhood, and they kept pigeons as pets, and they would catch them in the wild and teach them how to do tricks by giving them treats, and they would do all sorts of tricks in the air and like always come back to them.
Like carrier pigeon like stuff? Carrier pigeon
stuff? It's sort of like that, but they would do tricks. Like, so they would have them, they would do like somersaults in the air. Anyway. So,
pigeons.
I can't imagine why that would be, that doesn't make me think anything about why they would have broken it. I feel like that's a mean old man kind of thing.
I agree.
And I don't like it.
About a week before the murders, Bridget suddenly decided to serve mutton for Sunday dinner. The thing is that at the time, mutton was known for its strong flavor, which could mask an unsavory ingredient,
i.e. poison.
And a few days later, Abby and Andrew became violently ill.
I too would become violently ill if you were serving me sheep foreskin. What does it say?
Sheep flesh.
Oh, right. Okay, fine. That's just me. It's fine.
It's just me.
It just sounds very unseemly.
Just the word. I think you just don't like the word flesh.
I don't like the word flesh. I also kind of would rather you call it lamb than meat or than sheep for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Well, I think it's because if the lamb is older than 2 years, then it's mutton.
Oh, so it's like an old dried up.
I don't think it's dried up, but it's an older one.
Tough old.
I don't think it's tough.
Sheep.
2 years. All right. Abby then visited their neighbor, Dr. Bowen, on August 3rd and complained to him that she was feeling ill and she suspected that she and Andrew were being poisoned.
I would love to know why that is what she went to.
The stretches she had to do to leap there.
They're stretches that only should be done in the bedroom. Because I don't know what she's going on about. I would love to know the justification for why she decided I'm being poisoned instead of, the sheep foreskin that I ate last night was left out too long, and then I went back and snacked on it.
I gotta tell you, I've had food poisoning before, and it does feel like you're being poisoned, but it's food poisoning.
Well, you are being poisoned by nature.
By nature. Well, the doctor laughed, and he said, no, there wasn't any poison.
Though also kind of a brush-off statement.
A little bit.
Okay.
It was during this time that Lizzie also confided in Bridget that she herself had also been ill, but according to at least one witness, Lizzie went out shopping that morning.
I mean, hey, we've all had a little run-in with the squirts and still gone out and had to live your life. So maybe she needed something, It's also possible that she could be ill and still do something.
True. In fact, Eli Bentz, who was the witness, also claimed that Lizzie stopped by the drugstore to buy cyanide, but he would not sell it to her.
I don't know that this is anything credible.
I don't think it is, because my speculation, this is speculation, it's not fact, is that he probably wanted to remain relevant within the case because it was such a dramatic fucking case.
Yeah, and I think that later on in the trial we'll see that this guy, he doesn't have any credibility really whatsoever with this case. And we'll tell you why also. Just stay tuned, everyone.
That day, Bridget served more mutton for lunch and made the leftovers into soup for dinner.
Bridget! Don't you know the rule? If you're going to do lunch, make something else for dinner. You got to switch it up a little bit. I don't want sheep flesh at lunch and dinner.
Wait. There's more. John Morse, Lizzie's uncle, showed up that day and ate dinner as well, but he didn't get sick.
Well, that is weird.
Right.
That is a little bit weird, but it's also possible that they just had a viral infection that got spread through the house.
Sure, yeah.
And he just showed up after it had been, kind of petered out or whatever. I don't know, however you would put that, but.
The day of the Mortar? The day of the murder, August 4th of 1892, Bridget Sullivan was also sick. She hadn't had any symptoms prior, but she was throwing up, and she said that she had felt dizzy after eating breakfast.
Oh, dear.
Breakfast was around 7 o'clock in the morning, which was mutton.
Oh, we had mutton again. Oh, good. You're slacking a little bit, Bridget.
Broth, which was mutton broth.
Good.
Johnny cakes. Coffee and cookies. I don't know what Johnny cakes are, though.
I feel like Johnny cakes must be a cornmeal based, like kind of like a cornbread.
Like cornbread?
I would hope so. And I would hope it's sweet and not the non-sweet cornbread, because that's a travesty. Get it out here.
You're Southern.
And I also wonder, the coffee and cookies, I see this a lot. What is this cookie? Is this a real cookie? Like, what is this? Because this isn't something that goes on anymore.
Not in the United States, but in like Latin culture, it totally does. That's like
what kind?
Galleta de algo.
I don't even know.
What I said was cookie of something, like just little. I don't even know how to explain it. Like shortbread.
Okay.
Well, like shortbread, and then there's just galleta de abuelita or something like that, which are just like little cookies. I don't even know how to explain it.
It's fine. I understand.
They're not that sweet. They're not that sweet, but you can put them in your little coffee and...
It's probably like a Belvita breakfast biscuit that I've never had either. But
yes, it's like that.
Okay, just, that's the American version.
Sure, yeah. So it's like that, but 20 of them because we're Latin.
Okay.
John Morse and Andrew read the papers and they chatted until about 8:45 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And while they were sitting talking, Abby went to get the day's work started. She felt fine, but soon after, Bridget started feeling ill. Lizzie came in and she made her a breakfast of coffee and cookies when Bridget went outside to vomit for 10 to 15 minutes.
Damn.
By 9:30, Abby had tidied the first floor's rooms and went upstairs to do the second floor, and she sent Bridget outside to wash the windows. This day was kind of a weird day. It was very hot, very humid. It's on the East Coast, so it's like humid over there, I guess.
I guess.
But
I would be pissed if
I wouldn't be
95
enthralled.
degrees, I'm throwing up, and you're like, go wash my windows.
So I can see clearly outside.
Well, I get axed in the head.
When Andrew returned from so Andrew had left to do errands or whatever men did at the time.
Just being men. They just go outside and walk around to be men.
Can you imagine? I'm just thinking about like men strolling around in town and just not really doing anything and just kind of like waving at each other, just saying that they're doing manly duties.
Yeah, they do that all the time still.
Well,
and I feel like I did that one time when I was on acid and I went out on a walk through the road, through my neighborhood with my friend that I was doing it with. And we were marching around. I swear we probably looked like a couple of fucking Nazi shoulders, Nazi soldiers. We were literally, I felt like, all of a sudden I realized we were marching around this neighborhood right now. We probably look like Andrew Borden going around town.
When he returned from his man business.
Very important man business.
I'm very important. I'm a very important man, please.
His dick
oh my God.
And waxing his mustache.
Maybe that was what he was doing.
Yeah.
Bridget was still washing the windows. She said he didn't say anything as he came in, and she went back to her window washing. He had a small parcel in his hands and sat down in the dining room. Then Lizzie came downstairs and Andrew asked if he had received any mail. They talked a little bit. She asked him how he felt, and he replied that he'd felt about the same and that he wanted to lie down. Lizzie told Andrew that Abby had received a note and had gone out. Nobody ever saw Abby leave or return home that morning, and Andrew took a key off of the mantelpiece and went back up the stairs. When he came downstairs, Bridget began washing the dining room windows, and Lizzie brought an ironing board from the kitchen, put it on the dining room table and started ironing, asking, "Maggie, are you going out this afternoon?" Bridget told her that she wasn't feeling well, to which Lizzie replied, "Well, if you do go out, be sure to lock the door, for Mrs. Borden has gone out on a sick call, and I might go out too."
Okay.
I mean, I know you don't feel well, but if you do...
Hey, listen, just do some stuff, okay? I know you're not feeling good, but I tell you when you get to lay down.
Bridget asked who had fallen ill, and Lizzie replied that she didn't know, just that Abby had received a note in the morning, and it must have been someone in town.
Well, this note will make an appearance quite a many times.
But not physically.
No.
So again, Bridget didn't feel well that morning and thought Abby was out of the house. So she decided to take a quick break from her work and laid down in the bed when she heard the city hall bell ring for 11 o'clock. She said later, "I wasn't drowsing or sleeping. In my judgment, I think I was there 3 or 4 minutes."
I'm gonna call bullshit right now. And that is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Get a grip.
When I'm laying down, I never know how long I'm laying down for.
You will think you're... Yes.
Especially in the warm weather.
Has anyone ever hit snooze on their alarm
100%.
and been like, I'm going to sleep for like 5 seconds, and your alarm's going off 10 minutes later? Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Like, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, you can't fall asleep, and you're like, fuck, I can't fall asleep, and then you finally do, and then all of a sudden it's 6 a.m. and you're like, what the fuck is happening? So yeah, don't tell me you knew when you were sleeping. Anything, just like Phil said on our Creeping Up Patreon only edition, Focus on the Family, he said, if there's sleep involved, I'm having a hard time believing anything.
For sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's fine. She said, "I don't think I went to sleep at all. I heard no sound. I didn't hear the opening or closing of the screen door. And I can hear that from my room if anyone is careless and slams the door.
That is something they said, that the screen door was very loud, and unless you carefully closed it, you would hear that slam. I've lived in a house like that before too, and it also makes me think, well, anyone that was trying to sneak around would probably have been a little more careful when they closed the screen door, so that doesn't really mean shit.
Right.
So Lizzie walked into the first floor sitting room of her family's home and saw nothing but blood. It dripped from the horsehair cushions of the sofa, dripping steadily onto the flowered carpet beneath, and spattered in an arc across the wall. Stretched out on the sofa was her father, whose face was so hacked and bloody that he was unrecognizable. Lizzie was horrified and ran to the base of the steps, screaming for the housemaid Bridget, Maggie, come down. I can't bother to call you by your real name, but please come, hurry.
Bridget asked what the matter was, and Lizzie replied, "Come down quick, father's dead. Someone came in and killed him." Bridget rushed downstairs and later testified that when she got downstairs, Lizzie was standing with her back to the screen door.
She said that she found Lizzie in a state that she had never seen her in before, absolutely terrified, backed against the screen door as though she were ready to run for her life.
Lizzie told her not to go in and sent Bridget to go get the doctor.
Which...
This comes into play, and I realized it yesterday when we recorded. By the way, guys, we had to re-record this episode because the sound was so terrible, and we're not letting you listen to such tinny, terrible audio any longer.
No.
We're not doing it. Anyways.
Okay, so... we'll elaborate on that more. Bridget dashed out of the house across 2nd Street and rang violently at the door, only to be told by Mrs. Bowen that the doctor was out making house calls that morning. So Bridget ran across the street again, back to Lizzie, who hadn't moved from the screen door where she was.
When she returned, she asked where Lizzie was and asked, "Didn't I leave the screen door hooked?" Lizzie told her that she was out in the backyard when she heard a groan and came in and the screen door was wide open.
Lizzie pled for Bridget to get her friend Alice Russell, who lived down the street, and bring her to the house. She needed help, and if the doctor wasn't available, she wanted Alice. Bridget headed down the road to get Alice, who knew something was very wrong when she saw her friend's maid running up the long drive to her house. She knew the whole family had gotten sick the night prior, and she thought that they must have gotten worse.
Adelaide Churchill, their next-door neighbor, said later that Lizzie was standing inside her screen door at the side of the house. Adelaide opened her window and asked what the matter was, to which Lizzie said, "Someone has killed father." Churchill asked where she was when it happened, and Lizzie told her that she had actually gone to the barn to get a piece of iron.
Which, as we already see in the very short time here, she said 2 different things, but maybe... she's just elaborating more on being out in the backyard.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely not ever cleared up. Why?
Ever, at any point.
It looks suspicious because there's obviously 2 different things that she said in this probably 30-minute period.
But then again, it's like when traumatic things happen to you, how do people handle that?
Right.
Are you just taking some more information? Are you just taking some more information in where you can accurately describe the situation?
Yeah.
Or are you just in the state of frantic panic?
Right. And maybe you're just, as everything sinks in a little bit more, maybe you're like, I was in the backyard, but I went out to the barn to get a piece of iron.
Sure.
You're not, it's like, it's not that big a deal because both of them are pretty much the same thing. One's just more of an extenuation of the other. I don't know, but it's hard to determine whether that's suspicious or not in this situation, as with many of the details that we'll talk about. So Adelaide asked where her mother was, meaning her stepmother. She said, "I don't know. She had a note to go and see someone that was sick this morning, but I don't know. But they have killed her too. Father must have had an enemy, for we have all been sick, and we think the milk has been poisoned. Dr. Bowen is not at home, but I must have a doctor." And saying...
they must have killed her too.
She had a note to go see someone that was sick this morning, but I don't know. But they have killed her too. In the same vein, she also said, "I don't know where she is." So it's like, it's very contradictory in just the same sentence. I don't know where she is, but they have killed her too.
Right.
I don't know. But again, maybe she's just fucking shocked because she just saw her father chopped to bits.
Right.
At this point, everyone described her as being very pale and frightened, and now Adelaide started to ask her questions to try and get some idea about the circumstances surrounding the murder. Finally, around noon, Dr. Bowen arrived back home and was intercepted in the street before he could even get out of his carriage to come over to the Bordens post-haste. The Bowens had lived across the road from the Bordens for over 20 years at that point and he didn't hesitate before rushing over to see what he could do to help. When he walked in the house, he asked Lizzie what was wrong, and she said that she thought her father had been stabbed or hurt. Which, again, if this is actually true and not just a telephone breakdown of information, then, again, you already had said he was dead, so why are you telling the doctor he'd been stabbed or hurt when he was, like, fucking chopped up?
His face is completely hacked off.
This completely shocked Dr. Bowen. Just like Alice, he thought the family was still sick from the night prior. Early the morning before, as we had already mentioned, Mrs. Borden had showed up to his office, panicked that their food had been tainted. So at this point, he was expecting, at the very worst, that the family had actually been poisoned, unlike the way he just blew them off.
He was like,
you're stupid. Which actually may have been stupid, but who knows. He asked Lizzie if anyone had been in the house, and she told him that she was not aware of anyone being there. She told him where her father was, and he braced himself, but could never have prepared for the gruesome scene he was going to find inside of that parlor. Mm-hmm. Andrew Borden laid keeled sideways on the sofa. His face was so completely smashed that it could not be used to identify him whatsoever. His face was a gruesome sight of chipped bone and flesh, and one of his eyes had been axed in two. Ugh. I know that's many of us, that's our worst. That one of our worst.
I don't like eye stuff.
Not worst fears, but whatever it is, that whatever that would be, I don't want to hear and see anything about eyes.
I don't like eye stuff. Yuck. It's like in horror movies, anytime it's like anything to do with eyes, I'm like, ah!
Right, and they do that to give us all the squeams. Of course. Speaking of, we watched, recently, I watched the American Horror Story Coven, which I'd never seen before. Mm-mm. And so there's a part where Cordelia just stabs out her new eyeballs, and then she's walking around like she's some fucking bitch that can't put sunglasses on. Nobody needs to see your mutilated eyeballs. Sockets. God damn it, you grosso. It's disgusting, because I guess, I mean, I know that Ryan Murphy is not the man of making sure everything is technically correct in his shows, but I do wonder, if you stabbed your eyeballs like that, would they be in tatters, or would they be just bulging gross because they are kind of like a gelatinous, right. You know? It made me start thinking in ways I do not want to fucking think. So thanks, Ryan Murphy. Thanks a lot. God damn it. You can't just give me Jessica Lange right now. I always know this, but like every time I watch a season with her, I am like, this bitch is a fucking goddess.
Oh, I know
I worship the ground she fucking walks on. Same. I cannot even believe it. It is like, she's like in her 70s. I know. She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life. The way that her face, like and she has aged. She has aged gracefully. Very gracefully. She hasn't gone over the top with plastic surgery or trying to maintain, she doesn't look like the idea that some people now have as like that where you look like a cat person, which fine. If that's what you want to be, fine. But Jessica Lange has not done that. She is the absolute pinnacle in my eyes. Like, I know. Woman. I totally agree. Cannot even believe it.
Yeah.
Dr. Bowen said afterward that his instincts at the time switched to a more police mindset, and he began to take in the entire room, looking for any clues that might help them understand how the murder happened. He said he immediately thought to begin looking for ways that the room may have been disrupted, but as he scanned the room, he realized there was absolutely not one thing out of place, or even blood on the side table next to Andrew Borden. So while there was like a bit of an arc on the wall, it seems like everything around was untouched.
Interesting.
I don't know how that would be. I don't really understand, unless maybe it's just because the axe was very sharp.
Maybe, but I don't know. Like, wouldn't it have gone on the side table and not in an arc on the back of the wall?
Well, if you're pulling it out and it's, I don't know. I don't know.
Where would it? I mean, I wish I knew what the blood's... I mean, I'm not a blood spatter analyst.
I mean, there are a lot of pictures in the back of my book, so maybe there is one. I don't know. But anyway, okay. So after assessing everything, he finally checked Andrew Borden for a pulse, which he of course did not have, but his body was still warm. And it typically takes a body about 30 to 60 minutes to lose its warmth after death, though in certain situations it can take up to 5 hours. So who really knows? It is likely that he had been dead for less than an hour, but also just thinking about how hot it was at the time and they didn't have air conditioning. It's possible maybe that body stayed warmer than it typically would after some time of being exposed.
What's the time frame between when Lizzie is calling for Bridget and they finally get the doctor over?
I think it's within an hour.
You think it's within an hour? Well, okay, then in that case, if it's within an hour, what if he was still, could he possibly have still been alive when she called Bridget down? And that's why she was like, oh no, don't come look inside this horrendous scene. Yeah. Maybe she was hiding something that he could have been like,
possible.
It was Lizzie. You know what I mean? Or,
his dying breath. Yeah. It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible.
I'm just speculating. Again, not fact. I'm just speculating.
No, right, but whatever. That's what we're supposed to do here. Right. And I definitely think that the more I read, the less clear it is.
It becomes
very ambiguous. That I cannot tell you for sure because there's a lot of really suspicious stuff that goes on, and then there's a lot that's like, oh, that's just y'all trying to make something fit for convenience.
Right.
But who knows? So anyway. After a while, everyone realized that they still had not found Mrs. Borden, and personally, I'm wondering when in 1897 do investigators get called out into a violent murder scene? I would think it would already have happened. But right now, it doesn't seem like it has. Lizzie continued to say that Mrs. Borden had received that infamous note that morning and needed to call on someone, but let us not forget that within that same very same hour, she had said that the axe murder had killed her stepmother as well. So it's hard to determine what she meant.
Yeah, exactly.
She did maintain the story about the note until she eventually wavered and said, okay, she thought she was out making a call, but she wasn't sure, and she really wanted someone to go and check. I honestly don't know if it's that I want this to be suspicious or if it really is suspicious. I just don't know, because it's pretty suspicious.
It's suspicious.
Lizzie asked Dr. Bowen to send her sister Emma a telegraph telling her about her parents, but told him to word it as gently as he could possibly think to do, because obviously you don't want to be like,
no, Dad's
eye's been axed in half. Come quick.
Stop.
And also, there's an old lady apparently that Emma lived with that Lizzie was concerned, she says, about giving a heart attack upon being the recipient of this telegraph. So then, an officer, George Allen of the Fall River Police Department, and a man that lived down the street named Charles Sawyer, who was immediately deputized by George Allen, he was told to guard the front door and not allow anyone else to enter the home from that point forward, which was good thinking on his part, but maybe a little late.
Yeah.
Maybe. Again, Lizzie said that she wished someone would find out where Mrs. Borden was. It almost kind of sounds to me a little bit like she's John Benet Ramsey again.
Sure, yeah.
Where you're like, God damn it, there's a dead body in here. Will someone go? There's another dead body in here. Will someone fucking go find it already? I thought y'all were going to find it hours ago. And so Bridget and Adelaide, the neighbor, had no other choice but to take on the task of searching through the house for Mrs. Borden. And as the women walked up the stairs and the floor of Mrs. Borden's bedroom became clearer, Adelaide realized that lying on the floor in front of her was a body. She went no further, but Bridget went into the room, and lying face down in a pool of blood on the red carpet was Abby Borden. Adelaide flung herself down the stairs, gasping, "They killed her too!"
There was no blood visible on Lizzie at the time her father was discovered, and there was never any blood found on her clothes. At least 4 hatchets and axes were found in the cellar, but no blood was ever found on any of them.
And that's a very common tool of the time.
Exactly. There was a broken hatchet that was presented at trial as a possible murder weapon, but it ended up being just a theory. And we're going to go into that axe.
Yes, many more, much more later.
Much more, yeah, later.
A little while.
The only things that made Lizzie a suspect were her conflicting statements, strange reactions, and her behavior, which again we are going to talk about later. And a little bit more speculation. Some of us, like I said before, handle trauma by breaking down in tears. Some of us go numb and blank, and some of us go into autopilot. So maybe she went into kind of an autopilot type
Definitely.
of state.
Right.
I would.
Right. And I will say this, that, you know, in taking some more Enneagram situations, I realized, and also just looking at my astrological sign, it's like, wait a second. And also just looking at the truth of my life is that I very rarely want anyone to see me exposed emotionally. And part of my personality type is making it seem like everything's all hunky-dory, or I'm all
Sure.
put together, and I might be going through a divorce, completely broke, crying every spare moment of my life, and everyone would never
Nobody
know
knows.
because that's what's happening.
My mom sent me a video like a week ago or so, and I was like, I cried. I gotta send it to you. I still haven't sent it to you, but my heart was like wrenched, and I was like, ugh. But I was with somebody at the time, and I was like, I cannot let this person see me cry.
Right.
So I went to the bathroom. I cried a little bit. I wiped myself off, and it was fine.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I just had to pee.
I don't like that. I really, really wish that I was better at being able to be emotional with people.
So do I.
Because I feel like I've gotten better, and that's saying something because it's bad still.
Yeah.
So,
My mom, I don't even cry in front of my mom.
well, no, but I do. I have definitely cried in front of my mom.
I mean, I have before,
right,
but I won't now.
I don't know. She kind of elicits it out of me sometimes. I'm like, will you fucking get it
together.
Yeah, stop it.
Anyways. Also watched a Pixar movie last night. Definitely cried. Every single Pixar movie. Every single one.
Of course.
Every single one.
You know, the last time I really had a good TV cry was, it's going to be so cheesy because I was like, I never had watched the end of Sons of Anarchy. So it wasn't the horrible way that they ended it with him.
Sure.
And that terrible graphics of
I know.
running into that 18-wheeler. But it was when he was saying goodbye to his fellow lowlifes, serial killers and pieces of garbage who we all come to love when we watch Sons of Anarchy. When they were saying goodbye to everybody, I was like a fucking baby bawling about that. Like his friends and family. Never mind, they've been going around town murdering everyone for the past 2 episodes or the whole season. But you're like,
the show. Yeah.
They're like terrible rapists, fucking terrible.
They're the
people.
worst.
Absolute awful. But God, Charlie Hunnam. Hello, please. I fucking love you so much. Like, I feel like I love you so much that I feel like my energy might make it happen one day. That's how sure of my energy I am.
Like Jason Momoa.
And you?
No.
I don't feel like
and
that
his
about
wife.
Jason Momoa.
No, and his wife.
Oh, okay. Yes. I'm like, I can. Whew.
All right. Anyways.
Okay. Let's move it on from my raging libido.
Yeah. Something's up.
It's always like this.
So there was never any physical evidence that tied anyone in the house with the murders. Bridget, Lizzie, and a hypothetical intruder all had the opportunity to commit the murder, but the police never looked for another killer.
No.
They even searched Lizzie's dresses for blood spatter evidence, but not Bridget's for some reason.
That's definitely a bad move, because it's definitely possible that the housemaid, who you wouldn't even call by her own name,
right,
had a bit of a grudge.
At about 11:45 in the morning, Dr. William Dolan, the medical examiner for Bristol County for 2 years, arrived. He did the preliminary autopsies where the bodies lay and noted that Andrew's hand was warm and the blood was bright red. He examined Abby next, who was lying between the bed and the dresser. Her blood was coagulated and dark, and her back was exposed, and he noted that she was much colder than Andrew. So clearly she had been murdered first.
And maybe Andrew really wasn't dead that long.
Right, exactly.
Maybe you're right. Maybe Lizzie was like, hey, get out of here. Let me
go get a doctor. Oh, I need a doctor.
Let me make sure I suffocate my dad to death.
Sure.
Suffocate. He doesn't have a face. Come on. How do you do that? I guess choke him?
Choke him? I don't know.
Okay, so the day of the murders just so happened to coincide with the Fall River Police Department's annual amusement park day. And while the exact number has never actually been given, most estimates suggest that around 80% of the police department were at the park and off duty that day. And what has been confirmed by everyone involved is that the officers on duty were at were at a distinct disadvantage. Just like Jean Benet again. And I will say, it shows, I think, in the lack of thoroughness 100%. As they did this investigation. Soon, Inspector Patrick Doherty and Deputy Sheriff Francis Wixon were on the scene, and Officer Allen arrived again, now with officers Michael Mullally and John Devine. Some of these names will be mentioned again. There's just a lot of names there. It's kind of like, oh.
It's a lot, yeah.
Thank you for all those names. The men searched the barn, the yard, attics, and the cellar, and obviously had a lot of questions for Lizzie. One being, are there any Portuguese working on the farm over the river for your father?
Portuguese.
So, for a little background, being Portuguese in Fall River in 1892 meant that everyone was suspicious of you 24/7, as they were the first people that the middle and upper class individuals blamed for all crime that took place.
How weird.
Weird. And this day was no exception. Multiple Portuguese men were arrested that day for doing such banal tasks as withdrawing the life savings of $60.
Oh my God, $60?
Or asking for directions to New York, because if you were trying to go to New York, that surely meant you murdered an entire family. Because you're Portuguese. That's what you do. You're drawn to axe murder. You know, like you are as Portuguese.
Deputy Marshal John Fleet questioned Lizzie and testified that she claimed to be in the barn and recounted a story about a strange man who came to the house. It's a weird story, but we'll talk about it at the end, but it's just, I didn't really find much information about it.
Unless this is the person that the neighbors saw too. It's also possible that maybe that's the person. That's the only thing I can think.
I don't know.
Which we'll go into a little more in a little while.
When he questioned her about Abby, he asked her, where's your mother's body? Or he asked about her mother's body. To which she answered, she is not my mother, sir. She's my stepmother. My mother died when I was a child. And while that is strange, again, don't necessarily feel like that's suspicious. They had kind of been tense for a while. And if they didn't have the, typical, they didn't have not typical, but really the kind of relationship that you and your stepfather had. Right, exactly. If they don't have that type of bond, then I mean, maybe I've seen people call their stepdads Jim.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know what I mean? Or their stepmom's Abby or Anna or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just that type of a relationship.
I think that's possible. It did, however, change the entire tone of the investigation. Unfortunately, in my opinion, because I think it's kind of silly. Because when an investigator is asking you questions to try and solve a murders, you'd assume that they wanted the literal facts available. At least my very literal brain would go that way.
Right.
And I would be like, wait a second. Well, she's not technically my mom. She's my stepmom.
Right, yeah.
So, it also, to me, the way that they made this out to be, like, the statement of the entire case, that she gave herself away by saying, that's not my mom, it's my stepmother, which is absolutely ridiculous. It sounds like to me another sign of the times where, for some reason, Lizzie showing any kind of emotion, or lack thereof, as we'll see, they got her on as many times, having no emotion, other than good old Christian sweetness, where you're just a ladylike little, whatever you say. It was bound to draw suspicion from the men who felt that they were out of place, women were out of place for speaking when they hadn't been spoken to begin with. It just doesn't sound to me like any of these opinions that have been spouted so many times now that they have just become kind of like fact, really have any basis in anything other than sexism, probably. The sign of the times, women didn't have agency, really.
So the police left after completing their preliminary investigations. Emma rushed home as soon as she heard what had happened, and they planned a quiet funeral that was held at the home on the next Saturday. While they were out, the police took advantage of the family's absence to search the house, but they didn't really search everywhere. And everyone was already suspicious of Lizzie, so they mostly focused on her room and her belongings. Which is really super frustrating this whole time.
Right. That, just like we've seen before, you can't go in with one idea that you're trying to make the evidence fit that idea. Yeah. You're supposed to look at all the possibilities and eliminate the ones that don't fit. That's fucked up.
The next Sunday morning, after breakfast, Lizzie went downstairs with a skirt in her hand, and when her sister asked what she was doing, she told her she was going to burn it up because it was covered in paint. So that's super suspicious.
Okay, there's another. Let's add another one on the list for Lizzie killed her parents.
Yeah.
Because what the fuck? But I will say this, that in my own book that I read, I saw 2 different tales of this exact situation where she said she had her period, and she said it in some way, because it wasn't.
You can't talk
about it. But it was, it was a whole thing because she said she got her period, it got on her skirt, and she needed to burn it because she couldn't let anyone see it. She can't tell the cops, I got my period on my skirt, because apparently back then that would have sent them to the fainting couch. And, it's just, I guess, again, a sign of the times. Like, she can't just say, listen, it's not blood. It's not blood. It's not blood from a murder. It's blood because I have my period. And just like you, Lizzie, I understand I've bled through many a pant.
A pant. Yes, same.
Okay.
So Bridget told her, I wouldn't let anybody see me do that, Lizzie.
True.
Which, same.
Yeah.
According to Emma's testimony, she said that Bridget approached the Borden sisters on Monday morning in the dining room and let them know that one of the investigators, Mr. Hanscom, asked if all the dresses were there the day of the murders, to which she replied that yes, they were. But obviously Lizzie had burned one. So Bridget felt guilty about lying about that specific thing, and she became super worried. So after she went out and ran some errands and came home, all 3 of them, came to the conclusion that she should come clean with Hanscom, and she did. By Tuesday, the issue of the burnt dress continued to be concerning, and according to the Herald, the newspaper, the medical examiner went to the Borden house in the afternoon and had the clothing that was worn by the victims dug up and spread out on the grass for examination.
The professional way.
Yeah, that's how I would do it. There were certain items he wanted for further investigation, so he took those with him and then buried the rest behind the barn.
Just keep those buried.
Yeah, it's fine. It seems really disrespectful to me, but, that's just me. Mm-hmm. That evening, the inquest began under the direction of Judge Blaisdell. And it was during that inquest that they started to piece together Lizzie's inconsistencies. On the day of the murder, Lizzie had explained that she went to the loft of the barn to look for lead, and an officer who was examining the premises went to check it out. He reported that the loft was covered in dust and there were no tracks to prove that anyone had actually been there. Then there was confusion as to why Lizzie didn't call for Abby when she found her father dead. Lizzie said that she was under the impression that Abby had been called out of the house, but the letter from a friend asking for help was never found.
Also, how does anyone know that she didn't call for Abby? Just because Bridget didn't hear it?
Right.
Okay, well, that doesn't really say a lot to me.
The next morning, on August 10th, they began calling witnesses. Bridget was the first to arrive at 9:45 in the morning. An officer was stationed at the head of the stairs, and nobody was allowed within hearing distance of the room. Next, at 1:45, Lizzie arrived. There were reports of her arriving with the air that she was going to a picnic rather than an inquest, but we've brought up her upbringing before, and maybe that and having the thought of having to maintain composure in all situations was the reason that she looked so put together and at ease. Mm. Or maybe it's this other fact that's going to come out in a moment. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Lizzie was unable to give any clear answers to many of the questions she was asked. She often tripped over her own answers and made conflicting statements. Therefore, after questioning other witnesses, the board instructed Marshal Hillard to arrest her. The next day, August 12th, she was arraigned and pleaded not guilty. She was held in Taunton Jail, which had facilities for female prisoners. 10 days later, on August 22nd, in the preliminary hearing held before Judge Blaisdell, Lizzie did not testify, but the record of Lizzie's testimony at the secret inquest were entered by Andrew Jennings. Tearfully, Judge Blaisdell declared Lizzie's probable guilt and bound her over for the grand jury. The grand jury heard the case of Lizzie Borden during the last week of its session, and initially they concluded that there just wasn't enough evidence to warrant an indictment. Prosecutor Hosea Knowlton finished his presentation and surprisingly invited defense attorney Jennings to present a case for the defense, which was unheard of in Massachusetts. In effect, a trial was being conducted before the grand jury. and it appeared for a time that the charges against Lizzie would be dismissed.
But then,
on December 1st, Bridget testified about the burning of the dress, and the jurors changed their minds. The next day, December 2nd, Lizzie was charged with 3 counts of murder. And if you think that's weird, it is.
Yeah.
Because she had been charged with the murder of her father, the murder of her stepmother, and then the murders of both of them.
I don't understand that.
I don't get it.
Because they were married?
I don't know.
So you're like, you've taken away the matriarch and the patriarch?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's such a strange...
There's the matriarch, the patriarch, and both. I don't know.
Strange. So
her trial was set for June 5th of 1893. During her trial and incarceration, the press was... There are conflictions between Ashley and I.
Yeah.
But from my side, the press was overall favorable and respectful towards her. And the feeling was that she was being railroaded by the police and an ambitious prosecutor. And there was a lot of coverage that reflected the sentiment that she wasn't, quote, strong enough to have committed the crime, and that women didn't typically kill with a hatchet, which women typically don't kill with a hatchet.
Yeah.
Typically they do kill with poison.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Or my bare hands.
Or what?
My bare hands.
Oh my God, Ashley.
One thing that did start to happen over time, and we see this now in the way that the press treat people of color versus white folks when someone has been charged with a crime, but before her arrest, the Evening Standard consistently used Lizzie Borden or Miss Lizzie to describe her, but after the trial began, they referred to her only as Lizzie, which to some implied that she wasn't worthy of the respect that they once offered her any longer. I don't know.
That's interesting because... anytime we do like a case of about a murderer or murderess, I refer to them by their last name. Like anytime we do something and I don't like the person that we're talking about,
yeah,
I refer to them by their last name for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm not really sure.
I don't know.
It just seems more informal, and I guess that was their point. So,
I guess
Lizzie had been portrayed by the prosecution, as far as what I read, as being a hulking beast of a woman capable of great physical feats like axe murdering her family without an ounce of trouble. And so on the day of her trial, everybody was taken aback when in she walked, described as perhaps a little taller than average, but still petite. And while she may have possessed serious strength at her size, she was no Amazonian warrior capable of murder with the flick of her wrist, like me. But as the media is wont to do, everyone gave their opinions of her, and they were quite literally all over the place. Some described her as being very old-fashioned, while others said that she was on point with the latest fashions and trends. One paper called her now infamous pansy pin that we see in all the pictures that are where she has it nestled at her throat modest, while another called it rather loud.
Women really can never do anything right.
No, of course not. We can't do anything right. We're all fucking just helpless pieces of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Others felt it necessary to discuss every single feature of her face, picking her apart as if it had any bearing on the murder of her father and stepmother and whether or not she did it. Basically, if they felt she was guilty, they wanted to paint her as a hideous, brutish killer. And if they didn't think she was guilty, she was a composed, beautiful, ladylike woman for the ages.
Her trial took place in New Bedford the following June of 1893, from the 5th of June to the 20th of June.
The jury was comprised of 12 white men.
What?
I know we're all shocked in the 1890s that that's the case, but all ranging in ages from 35 to 64. Given the area, most of the men were farmers, with a few random jewelers, assessors, and laborers thrown in for that good old diversity.
Prosecuting attorneys included future Supreme Court Justice William H. Moody. Defending attorneys were Andrew Jennings, Melvin Adams, and former Massachusetts Governor George Robinson. And fuck me, was it full of drama.
Not only that, the temperatures at the time rose to the mid-90s, as we've already kind of discussed, and the courtroom was a sweltering furnace filled with hot-mouthed, sweaty people.
The phrase hot mouth makes me uncomfortable.
It's gross.
I don't like it.
I don't either. It said even the judges had trouble keeping their eyes open, which isn't a real promising detail.
Excellent.
Thomas Moody spoke for 2 hours, emphasizing Lizzie's contradictory statements about where she was when the murders took place, and how exactly she discovered her parents' bodies. He said she planned defenses and that truly no one but someone with her knowledge of the interior of the home could have killed them in the manner they did, and without being caught by someone else in the home or otherwise. But if someone became familiar with the home, they could do it. Get a grip, dude.
He concluded his speech by saying, quote, "We ask you in your verdict to declare her guilty. By so doing, shall you make true deliverance of the great issue which has been submitted to you." And Lizzie fainted, having to be revived with smelling salts.
Oh my. After 2 days of sitting like a graven image, as they said, after being accused of being the, quote, sphinx of coolness, and another, quote, never manifesting a feminine feeling. What are those feminine feelings
I have no idea.
to be feeling? Finally, Lizzie succumbed to those old feminine wiles and fainted like a good old lady should.
I've never felt the need to faint if it wasn't like, I was on a plane once and I fainted, but I was 10 and I've never felt the need to faint out of shock.
I mean, neither have I. The first witness was a surveyor by the name Thomas Kiernan, who had taken measurements of various spots in the home the day of the murders and admitted to the court that it was very possible for someone to be able to hide themselves in the coat closet near the entrance of the home and be completely undetected by anyone in the house, leading to the jury having to admit to themselves that an intruder could have been in the house that day without being detected by anyone in the home, and obviously raising doubt that the only person who could have done this was Lizzie Borden. Kiernan also testified that the spot where Abby's body lay was extremely difficult to see unless you stood on one particular step on the staircase at whatever height you were at, and otherwise it was virtually undetectable.
Bridget Sullivan was the most important witness at the trial, telling the jury about the illness the family had experienced, how that day she had been window washing, and how Lizzie had suddenly summoned her. She was also one of the few people who actually spoke well of Lizzie's and Abby's relationship, telling the jury that she hadn't witnessed anything malicious between the two.
One key point for the prosecution was that dress that Lizzie reportedly burned after the murders. On the fourth day of the trial, her friend Alice Russell testified that she witnessed Lizzie cutting up the bottom of the dress in the days following the murder, but emphasized that there was no blood on the dress multiple times. But the prosecution made it a point that apparently this dress is something that either was hidden from the police or that they somehow missed in their gathering of evidence from the crime scene. Or maybe it wasn't at all related to the murders at all and they were just grasping at straws. It's very possible. Either one. Obviously, very possible.
Adelaide Churchill did admit that Lizzie was wearing a blue dress similar to the one that was burned, but she never saw any blood on the dress or her hands, and even said that Lizzie's hair was tidy.
Which, unless she pulled a Christian, what is it? American Psycho, what's his name on
Christian
that?
Bale.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Paul? No, Paul's the other guy. It's okay. It's okay, everyone. I know y'all are screaming at us right now. But yeah, unless he pulled a full-on
Patrick Bateman.
Bateman. There you go. There you go. Way to go. Unless he pulled a full-on Patrick Bateman and she was covered head to toe with a rain parka, whatever you call those things, a poncho. Then,
true.
I don't know how she wouldn't have had blood on her from axe murdering her family.
But then she would have had her hair would be untidy.
Would it though? Because you'd have a hood. I don't know. Maybe you could just sit on top.
Maybe. Oh, true.
On the fifth day of the trials, Assistant Marshal Fleet's credibility was on the line regarding the handleless hatchet. That was a hard one for me to say, everybody. That was found at the home and was now supposed to be some key evidence in the case. He revealed in his testimony that he found the hatchet the day of the murders, which it had previously been believed that the hatchet wasn't found until the following Monday, August 8th, by Officer Medley. At the preliminary hearing, Fleet didn't mention one thing about this hatchet, but now at the trial, he was claiming he was the first one to see the alleged murder weapon. Additionally, he gave conflicting testimony regarding the handle. He had said the afternoon before and had sworn to Mr. Moody that the broken part of the hatchet had been coated with ashes just like the blade was, which meant that if the break itself was as dusty with ashes as the blade had been, then it couldn't have been broken by the murderer post-axing, if you can follow that logic there.
I can't.
But on the morning of the fifth day, Fleet completely reversed his story when former Governor Robinson tried to confirm the fact with him, saying, "I didn't notice any ashes on the new break." which obviously you're kind of trying to form the evidence to fit your fucking narrative, I'd say. But Officer Michael Mullally, who had directed Fleet to the hatchet in the first place, later testified just after him that about something altogether different happening. He said that there were multiple parts of the handle in the toolbox, all of which were covered in ash and freshly broken with no blood on them whatsoever, making it a leap to make this deconstructed axe be the absolute murder weapon of both Abby and Andrew Borden. The Sunday Boston Herald put out a special dispatch that said, "The handleless hatchet, now generally known as the hoodoo hatchet, continued its demonish pranks in the trial of Lizzie Borden for her life today."
Wait, real quick. Let's talk real quick about the fact that they called hoodoo demonish.
I know.
Get fucked.
Yeah, so it's just like, these are the kinds of things that happen over enough time, through enough instances, that you start to relate hoodoo to demons.
Yeah.
And now they're intrinsically linked to each other forever, even though that's not true. So anyway, it continued. "It chopped another great hole in the case, of which it is the most important feature," obviously saying that this hatchet story was completely debunked in court.
Mm-hmm. Then Dr. Bowen testified. He repeated his conversation with Lizzie about the sinkers that she was looking for in the barn and some tenants that were supposedly arguing with Andrew Borden, that she said that were probably mad with him and then they would be the killers. But anyways, she claimed that they were upset with her father. He also admitted that he had prescribed morphine for her after the murders for her nerves, and speculated that's probably what contributed to her confused state when being questioned, because morphine is heroin, and of course.
If you think, and that sounds like another fucking Patsy Ramsey situation.
Sure, yeah.
She was doped up. That's why she was so calm and didn't have a lot of emotion. So maybe that's why Lizzie didn't have a lot of emotion. I'm shocked. Her doctor prescribed her something that puts her into a pretty much comatose state, and then everyone now is going, "She's a emotionless, cold-hearted bitch." Oh, for fuck's sake, everybody. An Inspector Medley, who had arrived to the home the morning of the murders very early on, this is the one that you talked about earlier, who he said that he had the idea to inspect the barn the first thing while everyone else was still in the home, and he found that there were no markings on the dirt on the barn floor or up in the loft. There was absolutely no sign that anyone had been in there, which we all know Lizzie said that she had been in there, which this brought some speculation in the trial that Lizzie had been lying about being in the barn at all. And I admit it's very dubious, and why would you do that?
Right.
Why? If you weren't there. It's very strange. Unless you were doing something else in that time that you wanted people to know less than them suspecting that you had a dubious story about where you were when your dad was murdered, because maybe she was getting laid. Who knows?
Maybe she was with a woman.
Maybe getting laid either way.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, again, speculation, so it's not fact.
Obviously.
It's not fact. But, you know.
On the 8th day of the trial, pillowcases and shams were laid out for the jurors to view the blood spatter, and photos were distributed of the crime scene. They wanted everyone to see all the gruesome details of the murders of Andrew and Abby Borden. Dr. Frank Dapper, medical examiner, testified after lunch. He described the nature of the wounds to the skulls and said that he had tested his theories about the weapon, which he recreated, and fit perfectly with the, quote, hoodoo hatchet, even showing the tip of the recreated blade fitting perfectly into the hole in the side of Andrew Borden's skull, which could really say something, or it could just be a coincidence that an item of a particular size fits into a hole, you know? And to emphasize that point, the defense produced a completely random and very common handleless hatchet, which also fit perfectly into the hole in Andrew's skull.
Of course it did, because
it's a hole.
It's a hatchet-sized hole in the skull.
Yeah. And like we said, and we'll, continue to say, hatchets were very common at the time. And they weren't that different in size.
Right.
Plus, there was not one drop of blood on the supposed murder hatchet, which is awfully difficult to pull off when you're going to axe two grown humans to death. You'd think there would be some blood there, some tissue, some matter of some sort.
Something.
On the last day of the prosecution's case, they interviewed various neighbors who had all claimed to have been very near their windows, looking out around the time of the murders, asking if they'd seen anyone going through or in and out of the Borden's yard. None of them said that they saw one thing. And incidentally, this played out in Lizzie's favor as Deputy Sheriff Francis Wixon had climbed the Borden's lumber pile. He had gotten to the top rail of the 6-foot barbed wire fence at the back of their yard sometime between 11:45 and noon that day. He shimmied along the entire length of the fence rail before jumping into one of the neighbors' lumber piles and had gone completely unnoticed. And obviously, if he could do it, couldn't a murderer also have done that?
Probably, yes.
Very, very possibly.
The state's case was actually pretty weak, obviously, and the defense pounced on that fact, like a good defense should.
Mm-hmm.
On June 15th, the defense presented its own case.
And the first witness was a neighbor, Martha Chignon, and her stepmother reported that late the night before the murder, they had been frightened by a noise that sounded like footsteps or pounding on wood that was coming from the direction of the Borden's fence. They said it lasted for 5 minutes on and off, and it was around this time that a handful of other witnesses came across a mysterious stranger. Side note, that happened with O.J. Simpson. At about the same time, their neighbors to the north came across a stranger who was unresponsive, but apparently not intoxicated, and was sprawled on the steps leading from the sidewalk in front of the neighbors, the Kirby's house. Mr. Kirby had hollered at the man and tried to shake him awake, but was unable to do so. And then around 9:45 the following morning, Delia Manley and her sister noticed a young man that they had never seen before loitering around the Borden's north gate, leaning his arm on the gatepost. They said that he watched and listened to what was going on in the street, and they felt that he was very nosy, which made them uneasy. Mm-hmm. And that is awfully suspicious, considering this is very around the time that somebody would have done something. Maybe he was watching out for someone in the house.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Dr. Benjamin Handy, Charles Gifford, and Uriah Kirby all offered testimony of seeing a medium-sized young man of very pale complexion walking down the sidewalk, eyes staring down, and behaving strangely. They said, quote, "He was walking very slowly, scarcely moving. He was agitated or weak, staggering, or confused. He just seemed mentally agitated." In his summation, Andrew Jennings argues that, quote, "There is not one particle of direct evidence in this case from beginning to end against Lizzie A. Borden. There is not a spot of blood. There is not a weapon they have connected to her in any way, shape, or fashion." Robinson then added that only someone strong and insane could have committed the crime, and certainly not the spinster.
Boo. Certainly not that gloriously free and wild woman of the days. I don't know what to call him, but spinster, you can suck it.
Prominent points in the trial, or at least press coverage of it, included: the hatchet found in the basement was not convincingly shown to be the murder weapon, as we just discussed. Prosecutors did argue that the killer had removed the handle because it was bloody, but while one officer testified that a hatchet handle was found near the hatchet head, another officer contradicted this, which we talked about.
Right.
Though no bloody clothing was found, a few days after the murder, Lizzie burned a dress in the stove, saying that it had been ruined when she brushed against fresh paint, which is suspicious, but
also could have been her menstrual blood.
Sure, exactly. There was a similar axe murder nearby shortly before the trial, though its perpetrator was shown to have been out of the country when the Bordens were killed. Evidence was excluded that Lizzie had sought to purchase prussic acid for cleaning a sealskin cloak. Sealskin? Okay. From a local druggist on the day before the murders. But again, there must not have been enough evidence for that to be included.
No.
Because of the mysterious illness that had struck the household before the murders, the family's milk and Andrew and Abby's stomachs, which were removed during autopsies performed in the Borden dining room, were tested for poison, and none was found.
So that really kind of makes it a moot point, unless she just got sick of failing to poison them to death.
Right. The victims' heads were removed during autopsy, and after the skulls were used as evidence during the trial, Lizzie fainted when she saw them, and they were later buried at the foot of each grave.
Fetch me my fainting couch. She likes to faint, man.
She loves a little bit of a fainter. She loves a good faint. Mm-hmm. On June 20th at 3:24, the jury was sworn, given the case, and retired to carry out their deliberations. At 4:32, a little over an hour later, The jury returned with its verdict.
That's a short deliberation period.
Very short. Lizzie was found not guilty on all 3 charges. The jury was earnestly thanked by the court and dismissed. Lizzie cried out and collapsed back into her chair, and in her sister's arms, she said, "Now take me home. I want to go to the old place and go at once tonight."
Was she? Okay, because I guess she wasn't staying there.
I mean, I guess not.
I guess. I want to go to the place where my family was murdered. Take me there.
You're really good at doing the old Southern belle.
Yes, I am.
The trial has been compared to the later trial of O.J. Simpson as a landmark in publicity and public interest in the history of American legal proceedings, which isn't shocking. We've always been super interested in macabre situations.
Yes.
After the trial, the sisters moved to a large modern house in the fashionable Hill neighborhood of Fall River. Around this time, Lizzie began using the name Lizzie A. Borden.
Such a fucking stretch. We would never know it was you, Lizzie. Never. Not with that name.
At their new house, which she named Maplecroft.
She's been watching too much fucking, what is the Benedict Cumberbatch? Sherlock Holmes.
Benedict Cumberbatch is also handsome.
Oh. I'm just thinking about Mycroft.
Oh. Ooh, I love Mycroft. Ooh, I should watch Sherlock again.
He's a nut. He's a true nut.
How do you know?
Oh, I meant on the show.
Oh, yeah. That's my type, though.
Drug-addled.
Yeah. You know.
What, could we have more disparate types? Literally, you're like, I want you to look sickly and weak and and I'm like, I want you to be the biggest, tallest mountain of a man that can take me and carry me over the clouds.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, my God.
So the sisters had a staff that included live-in maids, a housekeeper, and a coachman. Because Abby was ruled to have died before Andrew, her estate went first to Andrew, and then, at his death, passed to his daughters as a part of his estate. A considerable settlement, however, was paid to settle claims by Abby's family, especially her sisters.
Were they like, oh, you killed my sister?
Some of that money is mine.
Okay, I get it.
Despite the acquittal, Lisbeth was ostracized by Fall River society. Her name was again brought into the public eye when she was accused of shoplifting in 1897 in Providence, Rhode Island.
Little Winona? Is that you?
I was just thinking she is a precursor to Miss Ryder.
One of my other idols.
Sure. Yeah. Me too. In 1905, shortly after an argument over a party that she had given for actress Nance O'Neill, Emma moved out of the house. Lizzie was ill in her last year following the removal of her gallbladder. She died of pneumonia on June 1st of 1927 in Fall River at 67 years old. Funeral details were not published and very few attended. 9 days later, Emma died from chronic nephritis at the age of 76 in a nursing home in Newmarket, New Hampshire, having moved to this location in 1923 for both health reasons and to get away from the public eye, which had renewed interest in the sisters at the publication of another book about the murders. The sisters, who never married...
Oh my God. Can we drop that, please?
Were buried side by side in the family plot in Oak Grove Cemetery. Lizzie left $30,000 to the Fall River Animal Rescue League.
Good job, Lizzie.
And $500 in trust for perpetual care of her father's grave. Her closest friend and a cousin... Her closest friend. You think it was her friend or you think it was a friend?
Oh, I don't know. Oh. Her girlfriend.
You think it was her friend or yeah, it might have been her like a friend.
Life partner.
Like a roommate.
Yes.
Or you know what I mean?
Yes.
And a cousin each received $6,000, which was very substantial at the estate's distribution in 1933 because it was during the Great Depression, of course.
I mean, I would be like, yes, $6,000.
Yeah, so would I, for sure.
I have enough to pay my credit card off and more. Yay!
Books from Maplecroft's library, stamped and signed by the sisters, are considered now very valuable collector's items. Of course they are. Mm-hmm. There are theories regarding the murders.
Which
is crazy.
Yeah. Decades long unsolved murder. There's theories about it. What?
No one else was charged in the murders, and obviously they continue to be the subject of research and speculation, as we have done today.
Yes.
Among those suggested to be the killers by various authors are Lizzie herself, of course, despite her acquittal. One writer proposing that she killed while in a fugue state.
Give me a fucking break.
She was a Manchurian candidate.
Good grief. What is this, Walter White? Let's not, okay? It's not very likely.
Bridget Sullivan.
Yeah.
Which I see as a very likely killer.
Yeah.
Perhaps in anger at being ordered to clean windows on a hot day. Maybe the fact that they didn't say her fucking name.
It's just it was the straw that broke the camel's back. She was like, I am so fucking, and who the fuck knows what else? Like, who really knows?
Exactly. And as we mentioned, the day of the murders was unusually hot, and she was still recovering from the illness that had struck the household, and everybody else was laid up in bed, but she was washing fucking windows.
Right.
And there's speculation of a William Borden, who, according to this theory, was Andrew Borden's illegitimate son, after failing to extort money from his father. But, I mean, would that really be the case? I don't think so, just because he would want to have, regardless of if it was an illegitimate son, I feel like he would want to have a son, at least, to pass on his estate to.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's possible. I was like, maybe like he did have some business dealings. Of course, when you're, a prominent member of society, you're going to make enemies, and who knows what.
Everywhere.
Who knows who had a, bone to pick with this man.
There's another theory about Emma Borden having established an alibi at Fairhaven, Massachusetts, which is about 15 miles away from Fall River, coming secretly to Fall River to commit the murders, and then returning
on a carriage.
And then returning to Fairhaven to receive the telegram informing her of the murders, which I find unlikely.
I can't even open my eyes to entertain this one. My eyes have been shut this entire theory. I'm not opening them, so move on.
So, like I said, someone had mentioned that Lizzie had tried to poison the family, and there were many speculations on that point as well, that she had been poisoning them, and then when that didn't work, she resorted to the hatchet. However, again, there's no proof that she bought the poison.
No, there's not.
Also, again, when the autopsies were done on their stomachs, there was no poison found.
Yeah, so that doesn't, but I do think she's kind of suspicious, but
she's suspicious fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's very suspicious, but I guess we could always say that about anybody. I would guarantee, I always think about that. If I were in the situation, what would they say about me?
Yeah.
But a point to consider is that pinning the murders on Lizzie did relieve the town of its paranoia and finger pointing at each other. It had kind of sent the town into disarray at that point because everybody was suspicious of one another. They didn't know who was doing this. And even though it does not make any logical sense to say, well, even if she's not the killer, at least we got somebody wiping my hands. Everything's all done. That seems to be how lots of people in lots of cities are. It's like, they really didn't do it, but we got him. We got him.
Right.
And I'll never understand that, because obviously the killer is still at large, if that's the case. And you should be worried about that.
Not now. But the killer would be dead. But
obviously. Jesus Christ. So anyway,
that's my literal brain.
Unless there was an interdimensional being that came and killed Lizzie Borden's parents, then yeah, obviously it's dead by now. But yeah, so
that is our story on Lizzie Borden.
Voila, there it is. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41 or something like that.
I think it's that.
And then I guess kids would be singing it outside her window all the time.
Oh, poor thing. That fucking sucks.
Well, it does. It definitely sucks. But it's like, well, where'd you move to? A street over?
True.
Called yourself Elizabeth?
Move to a different state, mama.
Not like you should have to be forced to, but like, where are you living? It's not that great.
Right.
You're living in the Bridgewater Triangle. You're probably getting abducted by aliens on a nightly basis.
Maybe that's what happened.
An alien came.
Maybe. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you would like to support the show, in a non-monetary fashion, we would love you forever if you gave us a 5-star written review on iTunes. You really don't even have to write much. You could even write amazing, and we will post it on our Instagram story, even if you say amazing, because that's amazing that you took the time out to do that.
Right. And hear ye. We have Halloween Creep It Real shirts that it's a very limited special edition. We are only taking pre-orders. We are not putting them up anywhere. If you want it's our logo as you know it, and it's in black and white, but some of the details are orange for Halloween. And then the moon that's at the top of the design is a pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern. They're so fucking cool. I know you're going to want to wear them all year round, but they're only going to be available for a few weeks. It's not even a few weeks. You must tell us immediately if you want one, and we will pre-order you one. But we're going to get them ordered at the end of this week, so you best come at us if you want one.
Yes.
Halloween Creep It Real shirts. Everybody wants one. I want one. I need it. Head over to creepitrealpod.com to see that. But also, if you want one of these Halloween Creep It Real shirts, just email us or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook and tell us, I want a shirt, and we'll send you a link that you can send us the little payment, and we'll get you that shirt ordered ASAP. They're going to be so cool. Yeah. You know you're going to want one.
Yeah, I'm so excited to order them.
Too.
Oh
I'm
my
really
God.
Jazzed about it. So, thank you. Thanks for listening.
Oh. Patreon.
Okay.
And if you'd like to join our family, head on over to patreon.com/creepitrealpod. We do a creeping up every week. Oh, we are almost to our first or our second goal of 50 patrons.
50 patrons.
Which we will, at that point, start recording our episodes visually for you. If you want to.
Oh my word.
I might start having to do makeup. Probably not.
Y'all are really going to see our tits now.
You guys, no, you're not.
Yes, you are, because I don't wear any clothes when we record. I'm just naked.
So anyways, she's not. But you guys.
Naked.
You guys. Oh my gosh. So you can see us like really interact and see our faces as we read notes, because the truth is, sometimes I really am shocked by what Ashley says, and she is also really shocked about what I say, and you can like kind of hang out. It's kind of cool.
Okay, so
anyways.
Thank you. We love you. Have a great life.
Have a great everything.
Creep it real.